Welcome to the Psychology Taster session for Manor School A-Level Psychology. Psychology is such a fascinating subject and it's so applicable to everyday life. However, the most common question I'm asked by prospective students is, what is psychology? So, to start off, psychology is the scientific study of mind and behaviour. And one of the things that we try to do in psychology is to explain the cause of human behaviour. Often there are many causes for one behaviour, but that's what makes psychology so great. In class, there'll be lots of debates, discussions, and even the chance to carry out your own piece of psychological research. So in today's taster session, I'm going to try and give you a bit of a flavour of what a psychology lesson would look like. And we're going to do this by looking at one particular human behaviour, aggression. So within psychology, we study a range of different topics. In year one, we'll look at memory, social influence, psychopathology, and attachment. We'll also have a look at research methods, approaches and biopsychology. In year two, we look at the optional modules, so schizophrenia, aggression and relationships, and we'll also look at issues and debates within psychology. So that entails things like gender bias, culture bias, and the nature-nurture debate. So the behaviour that we're going to look at in this session is aggression. Aggression is a really interesting behaviour because it's something we've all probably had experience with. It's also one of the key optional topics that we study in year 13, so we'll look at it in quite a lot of depth. So what is aggression? Aggression refers to behaviour that is intended to harm another individual, and that word intent is really important because it means it's been done on purpose. So what things might cause aggression? So you might be thinking things like friendship groups, family relationships, maybe even things like high testosterone levels, maybe alcohol. All of these things would be absolutely right, and this has led to a bit of a debate in psychology called the nature-nurture debate. So the nature-nurture debate discusses the degree to which human behaviour is determined by genetics or biology, and that's the nature side of things, or how much is learned through interacting with the environment, and that's the nurture side of things. So we're going to have a little look at how aggression links into this debate, where we can see the nature and where we can see the nurture. Now, psychology is all about the brain and how the brain links with behaviour and the environment. And psychology is a science, so don't be put off too much by this scary looking brain diagram you can see on the page, but we will need to know about some key brain areas. So the first one we're going to look at is the amygdala, and that's the area that's highlighted in red. The amygdala is really important in aggression and is described as a neural explanation of aggression because we're looking at how the brain can help us to explain aggressive behaviour. So you may have heard of serotonin, and this is a neurotransmitter. Serotonin inhibits the firing of the amygdala, so it slows it down. The amygdala is part of the limbic system in the brain, and this area controls fear, anger and other emotional responses. So serotonin has a calming influence. If the levels become too low, it means that people can't control their impulsive and aggressive behaviour. The amygdala becomes overactive. It fires unnecessarily and interprets things as threatening or scary when really they might not be. This in turn can lead to aggressive behaviour. Whilst we can see that aggression may be caused by low serotonin or a dysfunctional amygdala, we also know that this is not the full picture. An alternative perspective considers the social and family environment and how this can lead to aggression. This is called social learning theory. Social learning theory primarily explains aggression as being the result of observing an aggressive model. It says that new behaviour is acquired through observation and imitation. A child may see an aggressive act carried out by a role model. This could be a parent, an older sibling, or even a celebrity. They would then internalise this and will be more likely to reproduce that aggressive behaviour in the future. As you can see in the advert to the right of the slide, children see, children do. And this is exactly what social learning theory predicts. We are now going to apply these two explanations, the dysfunctional amygdala and social learning theory, to a case study. Within psychology, we often look to case studies to give examples of extreme behaviours or injury, things that we could not necessarily ethically study in a lab. This case study looks at a young man named Charles Whitman, a seemingly normal American man turned mass murderer. As you watch the video on the next slide, see if you can find examples of the explanations we've considered.
A scale exists to measure the darkest corners of human behavior. From impulse killings to madness-fueled violence. Calculated acts of cruelty, torture, and brutality. Forensics now reveals those among us who are most evil. August 1st, 1966, Austin, Texas. 25-year-old Charles Whitman has just killed his wife and mother. He packs a footlocker full of provisions. Flashlights, water, a radio, and an arsenal of weapons. He drives to the University of Texas and climbs the clock tower. For 96 minutes, Charles Whitman opens fire on campus. He kills 14 and wounds 31.
Charles Whitman, like many spree killers, was a time bomb waiting to explode. His frustrations with himself and with the world around him provoked this deadly attack. To better understand his anger, we must first look into his early background.
Lake Worth, Florida, 1940s. To outside observers, the Whitmans are a happy American family. They have a prominent standing in the community. But behind closed doors, Whitman's father is violent. He beats the family when they show weakness or failure. He uses a belt to inflict regular abuse. Charles aims to please his father by excelling in hobbies. He plays the piano and becomes an avid hunter, developing a keen interest in firearms. But the beatings and abuse continue. At 18, Whitman leaves home and enlists in the Army. At first, he is the model soldier, known for his skills on the shooting range. He is sent to the University of Texas on scholarship, where he meets and marries a local girl named Kathleen. But marriage is troubling for Whitman. He often yells at his wife and frequently feels the urge to hit her. He reprimands himself for having such aggressive, violent impulses. He types out notes, reminders to himself: don't nag, be courteous, be gentle. Charles Whitman is overcome by violent urges. He beats his wife. He is court-martialed by the Army after hostile public outbursts. His scholarship is revoked. He is consumed by the shame of his failures.
Whitman's complete lack of self-esteem triggers self-loathing and mounting rage. His urge for violence is a signal of cumulative anger that he is finding difficult to control.
May 1966. Whitman admits to reaching a breaking point. He complains of frequent headaches. He insists that something is physically wrong with him and confesses this in his journal.
Lately, I have been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts and overwhelming violent impulses. I have been fighting my mental turmoil alone and seemingly to no avail.
Whitman sees a psychiatrist who finds him to be oozing with hostility. Whitman confesses that he would like to go up to the clock tower and kill people with a deer rifle. It is dismissed as an idle threat. July 31st. Whitman turns this fantasy into a reality. But first, he composes a suicide letter.
It was after much thought that I decided to kill my wife, Kathy. I truly do not consider this world worth living in, and am prepared to die. And I do not want to leave her to suffer alone in it. Similar reasons provoke me to take my mother's life also.
After Whitman murders his mother and his wife, he drives to the University of Texas with 7 rifles and shotguns. From atop the clock tower, he opens fire on people below. The rampage continues for almost 2 hours. 14 killed, 31 wounded. Police finally storm the tower and shoot Whitman dead. In his suicide letter, Whitman requested that an autopsy be done on him to explain his behavior. Authorities found that he had a brain tumor. It is discovered near the amygdala, the region of the brain that regulates fear and aggression. Could this tumor have played a role in Charles Whitman's killing spree? Using this information, Dr. Stone considers where to place Whitman on his scale of evil.
Rampage killers like Whitman often have an antisocial personality disorder underpinned by the desire for revenge. I must, however, take into account the physical malady of his brain tumor. This could have contributed to Whitman's loss of control over his murderous impulses, and this places him lower on my scale at a level 8, which is reserved for non-psychopathic persons with smoldering rage who kill when the rage is ignited.
So, why did Charles commit these terrible acts of aggression? It's clear from that video that Charles had a troubled past, a violent father who inflicts regular abuse, a love of guns and hunting, and exposure to violence when he joined the army. So there definitely is evidence that social learning theory may have had a role to play, but it doesn't unerr. A walnut-sized tumour on his amygdala is no coincidence. Could these terrible acts of aggression have been caused by the fear centre in his brain going wrong? Well, this is exactly the sort of question we would consider in A-level psychology. And if you're interested in digging deeper into these problems and these questions, then psychology might be the course for you. So if you'd like to have a go at this question, I'd really love to see it. So have a go and email me rmatthews@manor.school and we can have a discussion about why you think Flora is behaving in this way and if you get the answer right. So why study psychology? Well, if you find yourself asking questions or wanting to know the answer to questions such as what is normal? Why do we forget things? Are we more influenced by genes or environment? Why do some people obey unjust authority? Should drugs be used to treat mental illness? And what happens if we remove certain parts of the brain? Then this really could be the course for you. We get to explore human behaviour, think about causes, think about explanations, and look at it from a scientific perspective. So, psychology uses the scientific method to explain all aspects of human behaviour, and in doing so builds critical thinking and evaluation skills. Psychology is a thought-provoking and exciting subject and develops such a range of transferable skills. You'll learn how to form a coherent argument using evidence. You'll learn how to apply psychological theory to real-world scenarios, and you'll learn about thinking behaviour and social interaction and the explanations that underlie these things. Studying psychology at Manor is so exciting. We have such a range of networks with people in careers in psychology. We get to speak to forensic psychologists, occupational psychologists, clinical psychologists, and explore what their work is and what they do. So if you have any questions about psychology, please do get in touch and hopefully I will see you next year. Thank you very much for taking part in this virtual taster session. Goodbye.